I am a networking noob.
You just blowing from Stupid Town?
So let's build a server? Now I know what you're thinking, Greg, you're a computer guy. How on earth could you not also be a networking guy? Don't they go hand in hand? How have you never built a server before on the channel? And that's the truth, I never have. I don't know why, I've just never jumped in. I think maybe the cost or, I don't really have a good excuse. We're gonna build one here and it's gonna be a pretty beastly one. Now we're not gonna use conventional server components. I'm not gonna use a server motherboard or server grade CPU. I have to buy that stuff out of pocket. And yes, that is pretty costly. I also don't wanna go with older hardware because we're gonna be using this for some pretty important stuff in the near future. So I wanna make sure that it's up to code and up to speed. Because this server is gonna be doing a lot, not just handling all of the footage, storing it all the stuff that I film on the channel, but also handling some gaming. Yes, gaming from a server in a different room. That's the plan anyway. I don't know, if that's a stupid idea, just scream at me, all caps me in the comments. This SilverStone chassis is so good looking. It's actually got really good build quality as well, something I did not expect when I bought this. Although it was a pretty penny, I think a little over 200 or 300 bucks. This comes with a 5-bay hot swap enclosure, and so you can put 3.5-inch drives in there. You just slide them on in and then tuck it in with these little lockable doors. Really nice there, and just the feel overall, I mean, golly, they open so beautifully. Look at that, nice and steady. So really good job there. You could of course expand this as well to the other side. Right now we've just got 3 5.25-inch bays that are unoccupied, but if you wanted to add another 5 of these on the left side, you could do that. I don't think I'm gonna need that, at least for now. We'll just stick with one. I actually have a Blu-ray burner that I'm gonna put here. I don't even use Blu-ray. I haven't used optical drives in the last like 10 years of PC building, but what the heck, we have a few of these here, so I figured we'll populate one. Who knows, maybe in the future I'll use it for something. And then there's the interior, so much room for activity, so many ideas floating around. I need to really hone in on exactly what I want here, and I'm gonna discuss a lot of my plans for the server with you in this video. We're gonna build the entire thing. We're gonna set up, I believe, a RAID 10 with 4 high capacity hard disk drives. I think they're like 16 terabyte drives. And hopefully have it all up and running. We can start doing things with it in the future. Are you ready? Stay with me. If you're sick of seeing that same Activate Windows watermark over and over, head on over to VIP SCD Key, where they have Windows 10 and 11 Pro OEM keys at a fraction of the price of retail. Just use a secure payment method like PayPal, enter your product key into your PC settings window, and say bye-bye to the watermark. And be sure to use our offer code SKGS for that sweet discount. All right, so I'm just gonna fire a few ideas off of you guys and act like I can see the comments in the present. I really wish I had a lot of your input right now. I could be running polls and things, but it still takes time to gather the input. My goals for this server, one, obviously it has to store my footage from this channel and other data. That's all gonna be taken care of in this hot swap enclosure. I can move this actually to this side. It's kind of a modular setup, so I really like that from SilverStone, but I think it's gonna be better here because we're not gonna use a very large power supply, although it will be a high wattage unit. And then that'll free up some room down here because I wanna put a larger graphics card. The reason for that is because I also want to game from this server. Now, when you think of servers, normally you don't think of like really beefy graphics cards and things. Typically you want low TDP, you want just as efficient as possible, well, I don't want a run-of-the-mill server build. I want something that I can actually game remotely with. Right now I'm in the middle of the 30-day Apple experiment where I'm just editing and attempting to game on a Mac Studio. And this whole time I'm thinking, man, it'd be really nice to have an off-site gaming system that I could run either via like an extended Type-C or Thunderbolt cable, or even over the Ethernet setup in the house. If I wanted to do like just a network gaming, streaming via Steam or something like that, I could do that from this machine. And that's why I want to put a beefy card in. We're going to have a higher core count CPU so we can run VMs if we want, but it'll also be a fairly efficient architecture from a gaming perspective as well. So even if we cut the core count of the CPU I'm going to choose in half, it should still be plenty for gaming. That's the overall goal of this. We'll see how it pans out. I just realized I might have gotten ahead of myself. I have the Blu-ray drive that I was going to put here, but I literally just said I wanted to put a beefy graphics card in here, so how can I do that? That doesn't really make any sense. So we're going to have to forego the 5¼ inch optical drive. Sorry, for those of you who are looking forward to that. We're going to take this entire side out. That's going to be task number 1. And then we're also going to be replacing these two 80mm fans here. I have no doubt these are probably decent, but I think we can put quieter ones in from Noctua. Hey there, good looking. While it may seem futile to fight noise in a server like this, if you recall from our construction videos, the server in the new house is going to be right next to our film studio. So I'd like things to be quieter if possible. I will admit these fans are likely unexpected in a server, but whatever, let's keep going. To remove this cage, we just have to remove 2 screws on top, and I believe 2 or 4 below as well. This definitely frees up much more space. Oh, didn't realize that the covers are part of the cage. They're screwed in from the sides here. We can't just swap these over simply to the chassis. So right now we have a large gaping hole where we don't want one. Maybe we'll just keep this for now and work with a smaller graphics card. No worries, we'll just use this as a chance to rework the Blu-ray burner back into the equation. I know it seems like I'm flip-flopping a bit. That's because I am. I don't know what I'm doing. But this looks pretty good so far. Let's move on to additional storage. And that's where this little guy comes into play. It looks like a run-of-the-mill 480 gig SSD, and normally you would just connect this to a system and store data on it, pull data from it whenever you want, and that's that. But I want to set up something different on this for the server, an SSD cache. So picture this. I have a bunch of footage stored on an SD card, and I'd like it to be on my server for future editing. Now, I'm not going to be editing from this machine. The idea is to connect this over the network to a local machine where I can edit. So I will be just pulling footage on demand, pulling data from the storage drives in this server. That's how we've set up the house, and I think that gives us a bit of redundancy as well, depending on the RAID config we use. It's just going to be nice overall. The problem, though, is that hard disk drives have significantly slower reads and writes usually than their SSD counterparts, and depending on the RAID config we use, we might also be limited processing-wise there, from what I gather. If it's like RAID 5 or RAID 6, especially on the right side, things could get pretty bogged down. So the idea of an SSD cache is to circumvent the hard disk drive reads and writes limitation. And so if I store that footage that I transfer to the server temporarily on this, say for 7 to 14 days, and I know I'm going to edit that footage within that time frame, then I can pull footage from this instead of these hard disk drives. And then once this has, the time has expired, whatever that window of time is for the data to exist here, it will be migrated to the hard disk drive array. So it's just a kind of a cool way to sidestep slower drives in the now, but you'll know, depending on how you set up your server, that that footage will eventually end up here, where it will be ideally mirrored to some extent to have redundancy as well. I might have completely butchered that explanation, just ignore it if I did. And we're gonna place this drive right under our hot swap enclosure. Next up is our platform. I'm going with a Ryzen 9 7950X 3D. And I know what you're thinking, Greg, you're building a gaming PC. Why are you calling this a server? It's just a server case. This doesn't really count. But remember, we'll be gaming from this server. At least that's the goal. And this has plenty of cores, that 3D V cache as well. That's going to be pretty sweet. Preparing that with a B650 tough motherboard, we'll gently drop this CPU in the socket like so. Adding some Kioxia enterprise grade storage, 1 terabyte should be enough for a boot volume. Also forgot I've got this Thermalright frame here, which will actually help with contact mounting pressure on this IHS. Look how flush that fitment is. And of course, 64 terabytes of Corsair Dominator Platinum DDR5 to round things out, although I am a bit worried about clearance here with our Noctua cooler, so we might need to downsize these. It's gonna be awfully close, that's for sure. Here we go with the test fit. Oh my gosh, that actually works, and we have just a sliver. In fact, I think it's just barely touching one of these DIMMs. When we tighten it down, it definitely will be. Not the end of the world, but it's cutting it awfully close. And now it's time for the fun part. Let's get the platform installed. Just gonna carefully drop it in. Ooh, it's tight in here. Tighter than I thought it would be. Come on now. Oh, that's cringe. That's cringe. Sorry for the cringe. All right, that looks to be about right, and our CPU clearance is almost perfect. I'm gonna be taking my time with cable management in this build. I want to optimize for airflow, only a few fans in here, and just wanna keep cables out of the way if possible. It's also gonna look a lot cleaner in here. Okay, I couldn't help myself. I had to swap out the RAM. It was touching the pipes here. I really didn't like that. So I swapped to more low profile, of course, their Vengeance DDR5, still very fast and still 64 gigs in total. We've got some basic things wired up. You can see our USB USB-3. We've also got front panel wired up there at the bottom, trying to keep these cables out of the way. Now we're gonna connect several SATA data cables, 4 to this hub. We've got one for the CD drive, and then we've also got an SSD down below. So 6 in total, more than I've ever used in a PC build before. And because I'm a networking noob, I totally forgot that this motherboard only has 4 SATA ports. This is one of the reasons why you might wanna go with a server board instead of a consumer grade one. However, we can very easily fix this by just adding a SATA expansion card. I've already got one on order. It'll be here in 2 days, but probably won't make the cut for this video. This drive and the SATA or SSD cache drive will remain disconnected, but we'll still be able to power things on and make sure everything else works. Power supply is going in next, and yeah, like I said, this thing is fairly compact, which we're definitely gonna need because of the clearance issues with the enclosure. So we'll get this situated, something like that right there. Just been shoving a bunch of excess cabling right in this area here. There's not much else I can do with it. We don't have space underneath this enclosure, and we don't really have much space over here either. I'd prefer not to keep it on top of this because, well, you're gonna be able to see through that fairly easily, even though I know it's gonna be in a closet. The PC gamer in me is starting to show a little bit. And unfortunately, those case constraints bleed over into the graphics card department as well. I really wanted to fit a 4080 or 4090 in here, but it's just not gonna work. So I've got, not a Wi-Fi card, not a GT 710, but an RTX 4060 Mini from Gigabyte. This thing is probably one of the densest powerhouses I've ever seen. I mean, for the performance you're getting in a footprint this small, I don't really think there's anything more efficient than this on the market currently. Gigabyte did an amazing job with this. In our testing, it also runs extremely quiet. It still has 3 fans, albeit very small ones, and it doesn't run very hot. So this might also help with the audible tones coming from the server. That's important to me, and might also keep the server a bit cooler because yeah, heat's always an issue with servers, right? So we'll add this discrete card here, and then we'll add our SATA expansion card just below this. I think that'll look quite nice. It is just so impressive how small they managed to get this card. Just gotta get it powered up. And now it's time for the cherry on top. These are 16 terabyte Iron Wolf Seagate NAS drives. I have actually been using these exact drives for somewhere around 4 or 5 years now. No issues at all. Literally haven't had a single problem with any of these. And I know no matter who you ask, you're always gonna get different opinions about which SSDs or hard disk drives are good or bad for NASes, etc. But I'm gonna stick with what works. I'm gonna stick with these exact drives, and hopefully we can just migrate the data over. If we can't, not a big deal. I've got backups online, but we're gonna install all 4 of these into our new server. This is my favorite part. So down go these 4 doors here to the left. We're gonna slide 1 drive at a time, minding the orientation. These will only go in one way, up to about there. Then the door will do the rest of the work. Here goes 2, 3, and 4. All the way in till you feel some resistance, and the door will finish it off. We can also lock these. I mentioned that earlier. That's nice in case you have sensitive stuff here you don't want anyone else getting into. And remember, last thing you won't see on camera, we'll add that SATA expansion card, piece of cake, get the other 2 drives connected, and we will be finished. And that is it. Our first ever server build. It looks really good. It looks better than I thought. You know, a lot of servers don't look all that pretty. You could spend the time and clean things up a bit, cable manage, choose components that look good, but oftentimes when it comes to servers, you just want to optimize for efficiency and for all the different peripherals and things you want attached. So I think given what we were working with, it turned out really nice. SilverStone did an excellent job with this case. I've got, they're called rack rails, I think. I've got some of those I'm gonna put on here. And then in the next video, we're going to set everything up. We're gonna config the SSDs, well, the one SSD for SSD caching, and then we're also gonna config the 4 16 terabyte hard disk drives for probably a RAID 10. And then we'll get the Blu-ray player set up, even though we're not really gonna do much with that in the immediate. We'll attach the extra 2 drives via our SATA expansion card, and yeah, kind of walk through like the software parts of this, because that's where it's really gonna get difficult for me, because it's definitely not my strong suit. I know I didn't pick the most optimal server hardware, and I'm sure I'm gonna be all caps like crazy in the comments over it. Again, I'm not looking for like the best server build ever for any use case out there. I think this is a good place to start. Of course, we can always modify and change things later. So with that, we will end the video powering it on. why not? We're not gonna, again, go into the software stuff and the setup, but I at least wanna power it on, make sure that it works so you guys aren't left on a cliffhanger. The server will be sitting like this in the rack once it comes in, so I wanna make sure that we power things on and leave the orientation as is, especially with these hard drives in here. Don't wanna screw those up. We've got our portable monitor attached, and of course, that's all connected via the 4060 here with an HDMI cable. So let's go ahead and flip the switch here and power on up front. Crossing everything I got. Power strip. Every dang time. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. It's alive. It's alive. And it's probably gonna take a few minutes to actually post for the first time since we have 4 DIMMs and an AM5 motherboard. That means boot times are gonna be a bit behind at first.
8 hours later.
Ah, there it is. Okay, yeah, typical AM5 fashion. And yeah, that looks great. So that's our post. We can hop into the BIOS. We could probably do a BIOS RAID config. I try to avoid that, but I think that's gonna be the quickest for now. Well, we'll see what we do in the next video. Also, let me know in the comments if you're still watching whether you think a RAID 10 is a better idea or a RAID 5. Again, I'm gonna be reading and writing quite a bit from this assembly, and so that's why I'm thinking RAID 10 is probably best. I will lose a bit on the storage side, but I'll have faster reads and writes from what I've gathered over, say, a RAID 5 or well, I don't think we can do a RAID 6 unless we had 5 drives, but if we added a 5th drive, I suppose we could. That's a possibility as well. So yeah, just give me that feedback below. I'd really appreciate it. Again, this is all still very fresh in my head and there's a lot that I have to learn. So your feedback and your input in the comments will be appreciated. And just, yeah, just don't totally annihilate me. All right, be gentle. Corsair HS80 Max Wireless Series headsets boast premium, low latency sound with optional Bluetooth support, clear omnidirectional microphone, and immersive Dolby Atmos baked in. Enjoy plush ear pads, breathable cloth, and generally excellent build quality. I've been using Corsair HS headsets for several years, and I think you'll be as impressed as I was when you try one for the first time. Learn more about the HS80 Max Wireless by clicking the link below. Thank you so much for watching. Check out relevant links in the video description, and stay tuned for part 2, where we start optimizing the server, and then we'll set up the rack, and I'll show you where it's gonna go in the house, how we're gonna hook things up. It's gonna be really fun. We've got a bunch of stuff, by the way, that I believe will be coming from Ubiquiti very soon. They've pretty much just given us an a la carte on their menu and told us, hey, outfit whatever you want. We want to support you in this new house venture of yours. We really like their products, so we're really grateful for that partnership. But we're gonna be doing so much with not only this, but also other things going in that server rack in the closet. I'm super excited and also super nervous because I don't know what I'm doing. Again, thanks for watching. My name's Greg. Thanks for learning with me.